Train the muscles, not the joints.
Welcome back to Natural Gallant Bodybuilding. Mountain. I know I have a sweater on, but it's cold in the garage, so I'll wait till I warm up till I have tank top on. But yeah, today I'm gonna do a few sets of bench in the garage. I'm doing some chest, back, and biceps. We'll see how long I have stuff to say to you. So yeah, maybe you'll be along for most of the workout or just a part of it or whatever. But the first thing I wanna say is based on a comment that was made just recently, and I've had this comment a lot, but basically what I wanna really highlight is this channel is a natural bodybuilding channel. So what does that mean? That means no drugs, no hormones, no TRT, none of that crap. I don't use any of that stuff. I don't believe in any of it, and I never have my entire life. So the thing that happens a lot is that as I make videos, and if somebody doesn't like what I'm saying about training, then they start to make up stuff and try to, just say, oh, you're just a fake natty like the Liver King or, other names or whatever out there or whatever. But the truth is, no. I am 100% natural. I've always been natural. So just to clear that up for any of you new guys that are here, I don't believe in hormone replacement therapy. If you want to do that kind of stuff, I'm not going to hate you for it, but I do believe there's a price to pay for that shit as well. And it is not classified as natural bodybuilding. Okay, so that's it. So yeah, I'm a stubborn person. I believe in mastering myself. And yeah, another thing that people always throw at me too, if they don't agree with something I've said about training, and obviously they haven't listened to most of what I've been saying, otherwise they would agree, because I'm saying, hey, whatever works for you, follow through with that when it comes down to your exercises or workout programs. But they'll say, oh, Jason, what you're saying is not supported by science. And they'll try to find some little piece of what I'm saying and take it out of context and then twist it, right? But the truth is that science has always been several steps behind reality. Reality is what is experienced by people in the trenches, right? You experience them. When you're training, you notice like some result. Just because you can't produce the study or the study hasn't been done yet, doesn't mean that you haven't experienced truth, right? It doesn't mean that you're wrong somehow, right? So a lot of people will say, oh no, the science doesn't support that. Well, where have we heard the bullshit mantra, trust the science before? Where have we heard that? I don't know. And then of course you find out the science totally fucking changed. So again, when it comes down to training, it's the same thing. Don't trust the science because the science is still catching up. If you're noticing there's some result happening, maybe you don't know why it's happening, but there's a good chance that if you can't find a study on it, there is still a reason of why something is happening to you. And yeah, once you have a deep connection with the body, you'll start to find out why you're getting results. And a lot of people won't believe you because they're too busy looking at papers. So, what are you going to do, right? What are you going to do? So today I'm going to do something just to trigger everybody. I'm going to do power band bench presses, meaning I'm just going to go to the range of motion that feels where my strength is and then rep out that way. Because I do believe when you use your power band, the places where you have anatomical advantage, you are able to stress the body and the muscles in a more aggressive way. Now, of course, you always want to warm up, you want to stretch, you want to do all these things. But what I'm going to do is some exercises like that today and see what happens, see how I feel as I go. Now, of course, I have a plan right now. And the one thing I want to really say to you really is that even though I have a plan, that plan can evolve, right? That plan can evolve because say I start doing bench presses and I start noticing there's something that doesn't feel right, or I feel like a little bit of a tweak somewhere or tight somewhere in a weird way or whatever, or I feel really weak or something. Maybe I'm doing something different in my diet or whatever. Then what I will do is that I will push the body in a way that feels that it is right for it, meaning I'm not going to push through a bad pain and get an injury just for the sake of following my idea. More people in the world have to learn not to follow their ideas if the ideas are proven incorrect. The problem is we have in the world right now, and it's happening in the fitness industry, is that people have an idea, and that idea is more important than what's actually happening. So even though they're proven that the idea is not relevant, that it's not actually in alignment with truth or their well-being, they keep following it anyway. And of course, we see all these devastating things that happen to certain bodybuilders or to certain athletes or people in general, right? Like some people I knew back in the day had an idea about drinking and driving. Hey, I'm okay, man. I'll just drink and drive. It's okay. I can drive fine. And then of course, you know, over the cliff they go. But you know, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? So yeah, in the warm-up sets here, I'll see what feels right. This is kind of like your initial radar where you find out what is everything feeling like, what's going on. All right. So I may touch my chest. I may not with lighter weight just to get everything going. As long as everything feels good, that's what matters. Actually feels really good. Feels pretty stable, everything moving right. And those of you wondering sometimes why I move myself around on the bench or I squeeze my ass cheeks or whatever, is that one shoulder sits farther forward than the other because of my dislocating shoulder injury. So sometimes I have to adjust based on that. But it's not like I'm trying to cheat or dance to some sort of invisible beat on the bench press. All right, let's do a set with 225 here. See how that goes. Yeah. On. All right, 275 on there now. And once I get to this weight, I may be more discerning in how I do the exercise like I've talked about. And I've done lots of videos, like months on end where I touch my chest with heavier weight, like 275 or 295. I did a ton of videos about it, and I did it for months on end. But sometimes I feel like there's a certain type of, I don't know if it's the right word, but just there's a certain type of power band area where I can really accentuate the strength and use that to my advantage with certain ranges of motion, and it just feels more natural. I guess that's what you could say. And this is a natural bodybuilding channel, so I'm trying to find out what feels more natural. And I always land back on the techniques that I always use. That's the thing. You know, back in the day, you know, when I was, you know, before I dislocated my shoulder in hockey and tore this rotator cuff in hockey and stuff, I was bench pressing 3 plates for reps, and I never had people, oh, you didn't touch your chest, what's wrong with you? Like, they were just impressed that I could move the weight for so many reps, right? So in the end, whether you're moving a half an inch this way or half an inch that way, it's not going to make that massive difference in your development, especially if that extra half an inch of movement is hindering your ability to handle the weight safely or to be able to keep that tension on the main muscle groups. So that's also the other thing. Is like I've seen some guys that all they did was exclusively floor presses, right? Which is less range of motion than if you're doing a bench press. And they had great developed chests. It's not like they suffered from it. They didn't have shoulder injuries. They didn't have issues, you know? So I think there's this mass hysteria that is out there around trying to combine yoga and bodybuilding. And basically, if you try to do both of those things, you are going to hurt yourself at some point. Yoga and bodybuilding are not the same thing, you know? Like, if you're putting total stretched sort of situations on a muscle and then putting massive amounts of weight, you're going to tweak something. And I've talked about this at length, but the reason why I am talking about it is because I get so much trolling about it. But yeah, so what I'm doing now is I find the sweet spot, and that's really the best way to describe it, as a sweet spot in the exercise where I feel that I can safely handle the weight. It's not awkward, but at the same time, I'm able to really put all my energy into pushing that muscle into failure. And that's really what it's about, you know. And whether you get into this specific way of doing it or that specific way, in the end, it's whatever is the most intense on the muscle, and that's what's going to get the most results, right? So that's really what you got to remember. Now I can rest right here for a second. Rest again. There we go. Now you can see during those bench presses, I might not have been touching my chest with the bar, but it was pretty close. Like so close that I'm keeping tension on the muscles. And that's really the most important, because you see a lot of people, they'll come down a little bit lower, but then they'll take the tension off the muscles and then have to reactivate them again. And that can do a few things. One is that the muscles aren't able to stabilize the shoulder joint as well at that point, because you're relaxing them and then you're trying to press them. And there's a certain amount of ballistics involved as you bounce that bar off the chest and stuff. And the other thing is that you're lowering the intensity on the muscles themselves because you're relaxing them for a second. So I would say that as much as I understand there are some techniques out there to accentuate the nervous system, like they're trying to stimulate the nervous system of firing the muscles hard and relaxing hard, kind of like rest pause type benches or whatever off a board and stuff. I would say for bodybuilding reasons, I like this better. It keeps the tension on the muscle the whole time and everything stays tight, so the joint stays tight and everything stays locked together. Now, the thing you saw me do at the end, the last 2 reps, was I rested at the top to get some energy back and then got a couple extra reps, right? Or one extra rep for sure. The reason why you don't want to do that if you don't have a spotter is that sometimes you can overestimate the amount of energy you have. So make sure you have a spotter. Me, I have a rack set up, so in case the bar collapses, I'm fine or whatever. But in your case, it is always good to have a spotter, especially with bench, because you don't want to end up with a bar on your neck or something like that, because you're trying to push the set too deep into failure. But yeah, no, my chest is torn up right now. Like it feels great, like in a good way, like from doing that set. So that constant tension and that power, how you can manifest that power and that muscle contraction is so underrated. And I find a lot of people, they want to do a glorified relaxation type of idea, and it kind of goes in the opposite direction of muscularity and muscles, So save your stretches for your warm down or that kind of thing. But during the exercises, it's not primarily a stretching exercise as much as you are stretching the muscle to a point, but that's not the primary thing you're doing, right? So yeah, that was a good set. So maximum intensity on the muscle, because that tension is staying on there, right? So everybody knows about the benefits of constant tension, and the stretch is important. Of course, I've talked about this a lot. So people call them lengthened partials and stuff, but a lengthened partial doesn't always mean the full stretch around the whole joint, right? Because then we could say barbell bench, even if you're touching your chest, would be impossible to do a stretch partial in, because there's still some more range of motion that somehow the delt can go through, right? So I find a lot of people, they change their philosophies based on fulfilling a certain idealism. But in the end, any sort of stretch and contraction can be used to accentuate the gains, right? So that's why I'm not locking out the top. I find that the muscle loses tension as I go to the top, especially with barbell, because your arms aren't coming in either, right? There's more a tricep push at the end. So I don't waste my energy with that, or locking out the arm and putting my shoulder in more of a vulnerable state. You know what I'm saying? Like when the shoulder's fully out and you push out the shoulders, that's when it's in the most vulnerable state. So yeah, I'm kind of locked in a very, very stable sort of perfected movement. You know what I'm saying? So that's really what you're trying to do, is you're trying to find that perfect way of moving for you. And when you find that, you're going to find the best of all worlds kind of combined, right? Health of the joint, strength, as well as muscular growth and accentuation or stimulation, whatever you want to call it. Feels good. Mountain. Am I too big for the camera? I'm gonna have to get a wide angle. So that's the problem with training back, right? Once you train back, then you automatically need a wide angle. So for you guys that are trying to make videos or do social media posts, like get a wide angle. You know, if you're gonna be training that back, you're gonna need the wide angle lens. Here's a pro tip for you. So anyway, now I'm gonna do some bent over rows. I just did 3 sets at 275 on the bench. It felt great, felt perfect. I could have went more, but here's something I want to talk to you about. And yeah, come have a seat. Come have a seat for a second. Pull up a chair. Okay, pull up a chair. So what I'm going to say is that sometimes you'll have a certain amount of sets that you feel like you need to accomplish in order to get the proper stimulation of a muscle group. But sometimes you'll find that when you do heavier days, and a couple of days ago I did 275 for benches for about 5 sets, okay? Now, 2 days later, with the same exercise, I find that I'm getting the same stimulation from 3 sets, not 5, because I have that soreness, a little bit of a pre-tightness already going on. And for some reason, that has helped me push a little bit more intensely, but I don't need as many sets to get the same sensation. So this is what I'm going to say, is that there are certain sensations, I'll try to say that again, there's certain sensations that you'll experience before you experience growth. And I've been through this process so much where I've gotten it honed in, where I can feel when the muscle has gotten that punch to it. So it doesn't mean that it's always just a short amount of sets. Sometimes it takes more sets, right? Sometimes it takes more sets, assuming that I've got the food in place, right? And the sleep and everything. But I remember, like I said, I've said to you guys, a few of you anyway, that my work is in the meditation field, and my wife is a world-renowned energetic healer and all this stuff. And I remember sometimes she could actually see what I did at the gym based on what she could read in my energetic field. Now I know you guys are probably thinking that's nuts and whatever, but the bottom line is that you can become a master of sensations. And when you're a master of sensations, you can see what will happen. You can see what the outcome is. And this is really what you're doing with your natural bodybuilding, is you're becoming a master of sensations. You're like, this sensation precludes an injury. That sensation precludes muscle growth. This one precludes fat loss. You know, another example of this is back in the day when my brother was dieting for a contest, he stumbled across how he should feel in the gym in order for him to have optimal fat loss. And he noticed that when he was too pumped and too pumpy and lumpy in the gym, he was eating too much carbohydrates or too much fat. So the body wasn't dipping into the fat stores enough for him. So he cut back on his carbs and his fats based on how he felt, not on how he looked. And then from that, he started to drop body fat like crazy. He started to learn what that sensation was. So you are becoming an expert in reading sensations. And on that note, like one time, or for a long time, I was doing like 4 or 5 sets of squats at the gym, or one-legged squats or whatever for my leg workout in my 2-day split. And then one night in the gym, it just felt like I needed to do 8 to 10 sets of 4 plates that one night. I couldn't do it all the time. Just that one night, I just had to do that. And when I came home, my wife said, I could see that you did something. I don't know what it was. You did something different. I could see you stimulated growth, right? She could tell. And she's not a bodybuilder type person. She's not interested in bodybuilding or anything, but she's a master of energy, right? So anyway, just a funny thing where she could see that without me even saying anything, which confirmed what I already felt to be true. I hit this switch inside me. I felt like all of a sudden some energetic system turned on from doing enough volume. Now, the disaster that people get into is that they find that one thing that turns on the switch, right? And then they do it to death when it's not appropriate, right? So if I would have went and did 10 sets every single workout, it might not have been the most perfect thing. It might have overtrained me, or might have been too much, right? It's like rubbing the skin raw, right? You just don't need to do that. So that's what happened today with the bench. Is a few days ago I did 5 sets, felt pretty darn good doing that, right? And then today I did 3 sets, and I strained pretty hard keeping that tension on the chest, and it just feels great after 3 sets. And now it feels like, okay, I'm done that. Now on to something else. Put the energy into something else. So you become very instinctive. If you wish to become advanced, which I know all of you guys are, you start to become wise. You start to become very instinctive with what you're doing based on how you feel, not on the idealism in the head. The head is the problem, right? The head is only the interpreter of what's happening as it watches the experiment unravel. But the fastest way to make the right decisions is to be in touch with your sensory perception. I mean, that's why you have nerves, right? Right? That's why you have feelings. You can feel when you've taken a stab wound, or you can feel when you're getting a massage, right? Those sensations will tell you. They will be the prequel towards your muscular growth. Mountain. Okay, let's do some bent over rows here. I'm just gonna do, I think I'm gonna do just 225 today, just to play around. I've been doing 3 plates quite a bit lately, so I'm just gonna do 2 plates today. And this basically confirms exactly also what I've been saying is about when you do heavy weights, then you do these other workouts of lighter weights, the lighter weights feel so awesome. It's like there's this pumpy and lumpy kind of tightness that feels great in the muscle, and at the same time feels like the body is primed. But to go heavy all the time, you just overdo that, right? And you wouldn't necessarily be hitting that synergy that I talk about so much on this channel. Okay, let's put on 2 plates here aside. Now, another thing that people misunderstand about sensations and awareness and all this stuff is that they underestimate how that can expand through this entire process, right? So if you say to one person, hey, where do you feel the tension? They might not have the awareness to understand yet, because it hasn't, like, we haven't built the proprioception in the area, you haven't built the awareness level, right? But as you continually meet that exercise over and over again, you're drilling deep into the awareness. You're drilling your awareness deep into that area. And if you want to go with Vedic astrology, right? Mars is the planet around muscles, and Mars is also the energy around penetrating force, right? To penetrate into illusion, to find out the truth, right? So you are always battling with your own level of ignorance with sensations in the body, and also your inability to feel certain areas of the body. So a lot of times the arguments that happen on the internet are based on one person's ignorance arguing with somebody else's awareness, right? And depending on where a person's awareness level is at, will depend on whether they really understand what the other person's saying. So that's kind of where it's difficult to educate ignorance as long as the person doesn't know that they're ignorant, right? So if you found out that you're ignorant in some level, or you don't know something about something, guess what? You're a step further on your awareness journey than the people that usually tend to hold on to sort of philosophies or idealisms that have nothing to do with experience, just what they read somewhere on the internet, right? So yeah, the real natural bodybuilders are on an awareness journey. We're saying, hey, where do I feel this? And we're open to those sensations evolving and teaching us even more, more deeply about what's going on, what's happening in the physical body as we perform these exercises. So the exercises themselves are nothing more than tools to expand your awareness on the physical, musculoskeletal system. That's really what it is. These are tools to make you into a spiritual master in some way. You're basically bringing your awareness, your kung fu-ness on this level. So that's a beautiful thing about it. Once you start realizing that, then it's not just about making muscle anymore. It's about understanding this complicated thing called you and your physical body. That's the most beautiful picture there in front of me. Oh, it's just a mirror. Sorry, just a mirror. Now, if you don't understand what I'm doing with the bent over row, watch my video called The Most Misunderstood Exercise on this channel. So that'll give you some great insights in understanding the bent over row and why it should be performed at least with some principles in mind. Rather than bending over parallel to the floor and stuff. Like a lot of people think that that's the best way. It's actually not. But I will show you a way that I stretch out the lats with a row after this. I'll just do 2 more sets. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to TRX row, and I'll show you that one in case you guys missed the video I put up a few days ago about that. So, but yeah, it's about the feeling. It's not about what it looks like, right? Like I said before, sometimes movements will look pretty and sometimes they won't. But this isn't about making movements look pretty. And we've gotten way too obsessed with that bullshit, right? You know, it's like the equivalent of the Instagram duck face. It's the same shit, but it's not the best way to build muscle, right? So, I mean, and the guys all full of, you know, the unnatural guys all full of hormones and stuff. Well, they can do whatever they want and get muscle, I guess. But the thing is that I've had to hone in the intensity on certain muscle groups, and that's the only way I could get them to grow. And that's the difference between natural bodybuilders and the hormone guys. Natural guys have to really develop those strategies. Otherwise, you will not develop the muscle. Hey? Huh? You don't want to argue with that? So yeah, sometimes by doing heavy one workout, like I've said about with the bench press and also with the bent over row, and then doing light another workout, you'll notice that there's a totally different sensation of using that light weight as opposed to just doing the same type of rep ranges all the time. And I mean, the sensation isn't the most important thing, unless of course it's a sensation that comes before muscular growth, right? So what I'm going to say is that I notice that I get that sensation basically. I basically start to really get the benefit of the high rep ranges and the low rep ranges and combine the two. And so it's really true, right? Some people in the comments, they'll see me do sets of 20 reps on the bench or something, and they'll say, oh, that's stupid, it's just repping out. And then they'll assume that I'm not into progressive overload too. And it's like, no, I'm into both. Like, it's just a matter of, first and foremost, don't get injured. That's the most important thing. And then secondarily, put on strength and then rep out with that strength. Those 3 things are that's what's gonna put on muscle mass. And of course, if you can rep out under more of a stretched position on the muscle belly, not on the joint especially, but the muscle belly itself, you're going to get more muscular growth. That's pretty much the main sort of teaching of what it is that I'm saying. And yeah, it's just great. So yeah, if you guys haven't done that, like done heavy days and you get too obsessed with just heavy all the time, you know, try doing a light day and then go back to heavy and stuff. You'll notice that it's pretty beneficial in a lot of ways. Some unexpected too. All right, now I'll set this up for a TRX row, and I'll show you how to stretch the lats out. So the funny thing is that a lot of the discoveries that you make in the gym are going to be by accident. It's not always, like, not necessarily having an accident, but although that can happen, but a lot of the stuff is going to be just experimentation, right? And an open mind is a prerequisite for that, right? If you have an open mind, then you'll, you know, tend towards just trying different things and just seeing, you know, if they have any relevance or not. And you just discard what doesn't seem to work for you or what doesn't seem to feel right. And then at the same time, you hone in what you know about certain things that are working and experiment with the subtleties there. So with this row that I'm going to do, I do keep the arm slightly bent to keep that tension on the lat and the biceps, right? Because once I straighten the arm, once again, the joint becomes lax and that becomes a different issue for my body to contend with instead of just generating as much force to the lats as possible. But this is how I do a row for a stretch. So it's like I said before, it's like a hybrid between a lat pull down and a seated row of some sort. So just adjust the lid here. All right. It's pretty light. It's pretty easygoing, not too strenuous. But you know what? It's a high rep sort of thing. So it's like the stretch and pump exercise, right? So when you pump something up with the rows and then you get that stretch, a dumbbell pullover is also another way that you can get this sort of workout too. You know, a little bit different, but like I said, you could do the strength stuff first and then the pumping stretch stuff after, right? The lighter stuff if you want. See, I almost set my ass on the ground there, whatever, right? But yeah, that's basically most of my workout. I'm gonna go do some biceps now. But yeah, I hope some of these principles help you in your training and help you figure out what works for you. If you want to hear more about this kind of stuff, just go to the Patreon podcast. The link is in the description, and take care for now. Motion. Oh yeah, thanks to these guys. They make all this content possible. Motion.